All right, so yeah, my name is Trey Austin, and I'm here to talk about a special presentation that we want to bring forward today. For a few years now, I have contemplated with this idea, toyed with it, and I finally came to the realization that it was time to make this happen. So with any nonprofit, when you come forward with an idea, guess who gets to be the one to lead the charge on this? And so when I went and presented this to Ed Kirtley and Garen Eubanks, Garen went, "You know you're in charge of this, right?" And I went, "Oh, okay. I mean, sure, I'll take it. That's fine, no problem." So that was sort of how we got started in this process. And over the course of the last few months, I've been working with the people at IGSHPA, making a few trips and so forth. And so I'm not really quite sure how Steve led into that story about Garen, because I've got another story to kind of break this ice here, because I'm a little nervous, to be quite honest. I've given hundreds of presentations, but this is really the first time I've given a speech. So I figure if I just make this funny in a little bit, that if I bomb the rest of it, everybody will still be happy, right? So last week I was in Stillwater trying to help put the final touches on this presentation, and I had been traveling for a while, and I unfortunately ran out of deodorant during that travel span. Well, I have a large family. We've got 5 kids, and man, when I get back into town, life just happens. And so I forgot to buy new deodorant. Well, I had gone 4 days without buying new deodorant. And so when I got here, hot, humid climate, I thought, okay, I'd better make sure I actually buy some of the stuff. So I had no idea where to go. And so I used my phone and I pulled this up, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe there's a Walgreens or some other type of CVS store nearby. And so I used Google on my phone and said, oh, there's only one a quarter mile away. Now, you're looking at this, and the first thing that's in your mind, I know what's on your mind right now, how in the world did you go 4 days without deodorant, right? Well, it's easy. I live in an arid climate, very little interaction. I didn't really move around a whole lot, and I didn't perspire. But as soon as I hopped onto that plane and I moved into this hot, humid climate, first thing I noticed was things were getting a little bit moist under the arms, and I thought, uh-oh, I better take care of this. So I've got this image up here because I want to help you understand and demonstrate what our industry has been about over the course of the whole lifetime that we've been around. We all understand, we work very hard with research, with training, to teach the people the right way to do things. But unfortunately, there are still certain aspects of our technology that is a little bit of an art. So we have both science and art that comes into play. We see what the world puts in front of us, we see the calculations and the real numbers that come out, but there's just something in our gut sometimes that tell us, yeah, that's just not right. So for instance, take a look at the image right here. This is where we're staying at, and then you notice that the CVS store is just across the street. It's only a quarter mile walk, and you think, that's no big deal. I can walk there. So I take my journey Sunday morning to try to go purchase my deodorant because it's definitely well overdue. If you look at this image, I'm looking at it, I'm walking around, and guess what? There's not a single crosswalk around. Well, conventional wisdom will tell you if there's not a crosswalk, maybe there's a reason why you're not supposed to be out walking around, right? So I'm thinking, okay, what do I do here? Do I go ahead and just cross the street? Do I try to Frogger myself across the road? And for anybody who's born before 1990 probably knows what that joke is about, all right? But I'm thinking, no, this is too dangerous. It's 6 lanes of traffic. I'm not going to take a chance with this. So I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll just go back the other direction. Maybe I'll go east here instead of going west to the intersection. And in that process, in my head, I'm looking at the map going, wait a minute, there's a big pond water, and everything in my life has told me, stay away from dark, murky water. And of course, my mind went straight to thinking, there could be an alligator there. So no, I'm not going to go that direction either. So even though this map says, hey, I can walk to the CVS store, the logic in my gut tells me, hey, I should pay $6 to go buy a $4 deodorant and just jump in a cab and get over there safely. And that's exactly what I did. So just a little bit of the life of Trey here and the things that I have to deal with sometimes. But when you look at this, you got to understand our industry does have a lot of great engineering, science, and application stuff that goes on. But there are certain aspects, there are certain things that come up every now and then that we've got to play a little bit of art to say, well, that's not quite the right answer of what we're going to go with. So it's great that, I promise none of us have actually synced this up, but Steve and Garen and Michael Albertson all have brought up some very great things. One of the things I want to reiterate again, this industry is about relationships. And whether or not you understand that or not yet is what I'm trying to tell you right now. It has the highest of high positions and the lowest of low positions, and I'm telling you right now that that doesn't necessarily translate to how much money somebody makes either. I can tell you right now that we rely very heavily on some of the lowest paying positions in our industry to try to be the most successful. In fact, I think Michael and I kind of hit each other together, and so he said it once already, and I'll say it again, but we are about relationships. It takes every single person in our industry working together to be successful. Sometimes we want to look at things and we hear about projects that go poorly, or we hear about projects that go badly. The thing that you've got to understand is whether or not you're doing things correctly, we are still dependent upon whether other projects are successful or not successful, whether we've had a direct contact in that. So it is important that every one of us does our part to work together in this relationship. Men and women at the manufacturing facilities, men and women who work for mechanical contractors, men and women who work for designers, men and women who work for drillers, all right? And even the advocacy people that are involved in helping us get through some of the tax credit issues, who work with government agencies, whether that's state, federal, municipalities, the marketing pieces that come into play there. It takes every single person. So in my mind, as I'm trying to come up with how do I keep people connected together, is to help people try to understand what were some of our initial beginnings, all right? We want to forge ahead with the knowledge that we continue to gain over the years. I've heard stories over the last 3 days and actually over my career of people who have been doing this for 20, for 30, for 40 years. And so I want to help those people. And I don't know if you guys saw the audience or not a while ago, but about 1/3 of the audience right here today, this is their first time to the conference. That probably is a clear indication to me that they're very new, if not brand new, to the industry. So it's important to me for you guys to understand that where we're at today, we do have a past, and we want to make sure that we don't forget that past and forget where we came from. So when we look at the beginnings of this, each one of us needs to reflect on where we're at and where we came from. For me, I got to tell you, I started out as a grad student for Dr. Spittler. Some of my initial beginnings were a little bit interesting. All right, I was involved in some of the thermal conductivity testing that took place back in Stillwater. Garen Eubanks was even a part of that phase in the 1990s. But some of the things that come to my mind, I don't know really why, but they come to my mind. I was in a trailer one time out in the middle of Stillwater, Oklahoma, doing a thermal conductivity test, and it's loud in there. I've got an air conditioner running, I've got a generator outside, I can't hear anything that's going on. So I'm just doing my stuff, and I come popping out of the trailer. The next thing I know, I have 2 campus police officers standing right there. Luckily, no guns drawn. But for a buck 24-year-old kid, trust me, that scared me. All right? I had another opportunity where anybody who knows Randy Perry, Randy decided to put some cows out at the petroleum building during the calving season. He didn't tell me that. So one day I go out there to check on one of my TC tests, and the next thing I know, I have a 400-pound baby bull who wants to play with me. That scared me as well. But moving on, some of those things were some of the things that I remember about getting newly involved in this industry. And again, I was a 24-year-old grad student. I had no idea what ground source heat pump systems were about. I barely understood 2 words in the phrase of my thesis that I was supposed to be working on: conductivity and maybe heat pump, right? Somewhere in there. Everything else was a little bit odd to me to understand. Nonetheless, I continued to move on because I loved the technology. I understood it. The next thing I know, I blinked, and it's been 22 years, and I can't even fathom the amount of information and things that have happened over that time, the things that we have learned as an industry, that we've gotten better at, the technology improvements with the equipment, some of the design procedures that we've gotten better at. It is amazing to see how we've transformed ourselves, even from my initial involvement from the mid to early 1990s. So for those of you who aren't aware, I want to show you something here that kind of helps reconnect this past. This is sort of where we came from and how we are.
Here we are in Stillwater, Oklahoma, on the campus of Oklahoma State University, where the GS system technology was developed. Let's talk to Dr. Jim Bose, one of the designers, to see what he has to say about this system.
This technology is not new. It's 30 to 40 years old. It's basic thermodynamics applied to home heating, home cooling, and hot water. We have a number of these systems in Stillwater that have been operating over 12 years, and they're going strong. So people should not be concerned about these systems not lasting a long time as we're promoting.
The association was started in 1987. What were the precursors to getting that association going?
Well, I think that was generated in a meeting up in Indianapolis at Public Service Indiana. And there's a guy named Osborne up there who was the vice president, and he wanted to have a stronger role at PSI. And so what he said was, and he was kind of a political guy, he says, we need an association because we can't just have, one person, in charge of this, that nobody's going to listen unless you have an association, so we have to have a number of people to do that. So we did at that time just go ahead and at that meeting just sit down and said, okay, what do we want in association? And I didn't know what was an association. I didn't know what a constitution was or bylaws, but we got lucky. There was, at the motel where we were staying, there was a bunch of cake bakers having their annual meeting. It had constitution and bylaws, a little bitty fold out, 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. It said what it was, and so we just took that, and another guy and I, Tom O'Day, got that and start writing down a bunch of stuff. And by the time we left there, we had the beginning of association, and we had 5 charter members. I mean, that was pretty nice. I can't remember what they paid, but it was either $5,000 or $10,000. So we launched off, and came back to Stillwater, and everybody thought we were geniuses, but it was, it was a good thing, and people could see the value in it. That we need to have something, a review process, where nobody would getting in there and putting things in there that weren't necessary or restrictive and that sort of stuff. So it just gradually, we had plenty of time to do it. We've been around a long, long time. IGSHPA had been, not IGSHPA, but the technology was being developed. I can remember when we had a workshop. The workshop consisted of about 3 pages of paper, and that's what we knew, and that's what we were selling.
So where was the first ground source international project that you would say IGSHPA got involved in to help facilitate moving it forward?
Oh, probably east of Stillwater, 5 miles. No, we were invited to Korea and China, and our first conference that I went to was in Sweden. I had no idea that it was any value, but I saw this brochure about an international conference in Sweden, and so I found out, well, okay, I'll just see if I can't get a trip to Sweden, and maybe if I get an invite over there, well, the dean will give me some money to go. So I sent off, for information and what we were doing over here, and I got a letter back and a check. It covered all my expenses and everything else, and so, I mean, it was launched by just a simple request to here to get to go to that conference, and so it was just an accident. The timing was just perfect.
What made you use the term international, considering that we'd really only done stuff in the United States and we weren't really aware of anything else outside the U.S.?
That's a simple question, At the university, you gotta do something that looks something like what somebody else is doing, so that you can get permission. Okay, so if you have an association that wants to do these things, I looked around through the book, and I was in engineering and architecture and technology, and they had the International Fire Service Training Association. So I said, aha, there's where the word international is being used. I'll just pattern our association after that one, and I'll throw international in front of the Ground Source Heat Pump Association. So that's how it happened, just because I knew that would fit within the model that the university was comfortable with. Just stealing, just looking around and see what will work. I mean.
Do you remember early in the years, maybe even prior to the forming of IGSHPA, what was the first real interaction for research that we did that you feel like was important for our industry?
Well, it depends. The level of research was pretty simple when we started. We started off with 5-inch PVC, and then we got into the small diameter pipe with polybutylene, and then polyethylene came along, And
You
and
remember
at
what
that
year
time,
that was that polyethylene started?
well, I can't.
Okay.
But Steve Cavanaugh, from who was a graduate student for Gerald Parker here in mechanical engineering, wanted to do some vertical heat exchangers, and so he started a research program out there at the lab where we were working, at the solar building, which we referred to, and he drilled a bunch of holes out there with different heat exchangers, single loops, double loops, and that sort of stuff. So that was probably the first research done at Oklahoma State University. But a little bit later on, we found out that a lot of those good ideas we thought were unique. When we went to the library, you don't want to brag too much about how unique you are until you've had a real good visit to the library. And so, but that was one of the first ones where we got a kick start. But then, the laboratories out there where you get hands-on on how to do it and really took off. And then we got the first research contract was whenever Jimmy Carter got into office, because then he was a solar guy. And so I took it over to the people in engineering and says, I want to propose this ground source heat pump thought to DOE, and this guy was there. He says, unless it has solar on it, Jim, it doesn't have a Chinaman's chance. I said, okay, how about solar assisted ground coupled heat pumps? And that's how it got in, because I negotiated that contract in my office one time during noon hour when the people from DOE called and said, you're asking for $149,000. Do you need any more money than that? I didn't know what to think. I choked up and said, no, I think we can do what we need. I should have, that was back when I was green and not greedy. You got to get greedy in this business if you're going to get anything accomplished. That's a joke in case.
And playing along the lines of the research lab, what were the first interactions of doing that research and other testing that went on out of the petroleum building?
Well, we got involved in this thing, and we made so much noise. We picked up a research contract from ASHRAE. Then we got involved with National Rural Electric Cooperative Association in Peyton Colley. And they were very innovative, the rural electric co-op people. And Peyton Colley says, hey, okay, let's go ahead and write this design book, because the one with ASHRAE, we had so many different people telling us what to do, is that the ASHRAE book was more about models instead of how to do it. And so when Peyton came along, well, then he put the money at it. And about that time, EPRI, Electric Power Research Institute, and Pal Joyner heard about it. And so what he did was he wanted to have projects with the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association, so they chained together, and he put the money together, so we had a bigger project to do. So that's how it started, was that simple thing of going to DOE and then getting ASHRAE to do something, and then NRECA, and then EPRI, and then after that, well, DOE again and again and again, see. So, it's a good idea. Anybody could sell it, but you just got to keep on talking about it, because there's so many people at a university and around, fighting for the funds or asking for funds. You just got to keep in front of them every time you have a chance. Well, if it's in your nature to think that this is the only technology out there, that helps. And of course we're still number one. We'll always be number one. You know that. You're a mechanical engineer. And the thermal is on our side. The science is on our side. We'll never be number two. Can't be.
Do you remember when the first IGSHPA conference was?
Well, that would have been up in Indiana when we formed the association, because we called it for our first conference because that's the first time we all got together and agreed that we were going to have it.
Yep, 1987.
1987, okay. That seems to fit with the 89 and all this and all that. Well, when I say we're number one, I really mean that, because when it comes to energy conservation and serving it, we don't compete with any other technology. In other words, if you put a better heat pump models or better equipment comes out, we're better off because of that. Everything that happens, it all gangs together. It makes us look better. We make them look better. And we're one of the only solar people right now, or we're the only group of people because you know what happened to solar? They slapped a tariff on it, I believe. Well, but at the same time, we got the tax credit renewed because it doesn't compete with anybody. It's to help everybody. It takes any old system and makes it better, you know. And of course, the big challenge is where this thing really, really is king is in cooling, because that's where the big demand is. And so in the future, you know, if you want to be in the game, you're going to have to figure out how to handle the cooling load. The heating load, Lord, the world's full of heat. Now we've got to try to do is figure out how to take some of that heat and get rid of it. And that's where we look so good, because you know what happens? The demand occurs during the peak heating or the peak cooling load, and there's nothing you can do other than just sit back there and make people more and more or less comfortable, because about the only thing you can do is just let those temperatures kind of vary or increase. And when you do that, you don't get the moisture removal and all that. So it's hard not to be just pretty positive about what's going to survive, and we're surviving, and we got the tax credit came back through the work of a lot of people. You know, you don't just get that. I mean,
Over the 30 and 40 years that you've been involved, what's been the most satisfying element that you've seen or that you've been a part of?
to see it growing, the quality of people in there. Every time I go to the conference and I see all this new equipment, and I mean, it's not like what we did up at the school, and you might have been up there. We were using garden hoses and band clamps to put these things together. They still worked, and they worked well. But when you go to this conference and you see all of that equipment there and the quality of it, I mean, no, not me in my wildest dream would I think that would happen in that size. That the first time we said something about, well, you know, this really works well in Oklahoma. And somebody said, well, what about up north? So we'll let them worry about it. Well, it turns out to be it's better up north, because they need heat up there, and this is good. So that's what really, really impresses me is the people that get in and the quality of the equipment. I mean, that looks. Art McElroy from over in McElroy, he says that looks store-bought.
All right, so that's just a taste a little bit about Dr. Bose and the history that he's been involved. For those of you who don't know, he used to be the executive director of IGSHPA. And so it was very helpful and beneficial to sort of get that information and knowledge. And I know that there are several people in this room that carry just as much knowledge and information in your head. And so in that process, I wanted to come up with a way to sort of recognize that. So arriving at today, you know, we have people that are in this room that have been doing this for 20, 30, 40 years, maybe even 50, I'm not sure, all right? And the thing that you see, we've gone through ebbs and flows, all right? We've got systems out there. We've had win, lose, or draw occasions that we've gone through. Obviously, last year was a terrible year without the tax credit. I've heard a lot of heartburn about that process, and even to the extent of, even heard stories over the last couple of days of people who have passed away, and now the legacy has to live on to the next generation, and so the baton's been handed off to the next level of people within certain companies who do installations and work. So we're trying to come up with a way here of understanding we want to be sustainable in the sense of our industry needs to survive, and it survives with people. It survives with people who care. Some of you in this room have been doing it for a long time. Some of you have only been doing it for a short period of time. Some of you are life givers. Some of you maybe not life givers, and that's fine. We need everybody. What I would like to say is I would encourage you, everybody who is in this room, if you're part of our industry, do your part to do your best. Make a contribution for however long you're going to do it, whether that's a couple of months, couple of years, or whether that's a lifetime. But there are a select few out there who carry just a little bit different step when they walk when it comes to our industry and it comes to our technology. People who are passionate about it, who live it, who breathe it, who smell it every day. Unfortunately, probably carry it at home and have conversations with their spouses. People who carry charisma with it, all right? People who might be charismatic, Jack Deanna, all right, about our industry and what goes on. And no matter what happens, we'll stick through this, through the ups and downs. The thing that I look at, there's so many different descriptors that you could come up with, but the one thing that I thought was the biggest one that can describe somebody who does this are people who endure, people who have been there and done that, who have had hard projects, who have had easy projects. They've gone through both the ups and downs of living through that, all right? There are people who give that kind of contribution. And in the end, what we see is people who have a lifetime of experience that use that understanding and learning and carry that balance of, remember what I said when I started out, it's a balance of both science and art. So as I continue to formulate the idea of this presentation and how I wanted it, I found this piece of artwork that I thought was very interesting. In this process, I came up with this tree, and it's got leaves, it's got branches, it's got a big tree trunk, and it's got roots. And when you look at the roots, you've got big roots, you've got small roots. And in this whole process, what I see is our industry. The leaves are the new people who are coming into our industry. The branches would be the people who have been here for a while. Eventually, those leaves fall off and they fall to the ground, and they nourish the roots. And so every now and then, more and more people who have been doing this for longer, lifetime contributions, become a part of our root system. And so with that, I would like to recognize those people who become our roots for our industry. So what I would like to tell you is we are creating the Dr. Jim Bose Lifetime Achievement Award. This year, it's going to be named in his honor. Moving forward, we will be giving this award to people who are voted on, not by me, but by you, the members of the association. We will be working together to form the criteria, which we've got a skeleton outline for that. And we'll have a name, a listing name of people to vote on, of people who each year will receive this award. Those who receive the award, your name will be put on a plaque that will be mounted at the IGSHPA headquarters so that everybody who visits through the doors of the IGSHPA office will see those lifetime people who have made that commitment to our industry. With regarding to Dr. Bose, this is the award that he's going to be giving. He's unable to attend today, so we have one of his sons here today to accept the award on his behalf. And for those of you who may have a little bit trouble reading this, it says, given in recognition of your outstanding vision, commitment, and achievement in the field of ground source heat pumps. In honor of your exceptional leadership and dedication, this award will henceforth be given in your name. You have given our industry solid roots with strength to grow on. Jason Bose. I don't know if anybody wants to take a picture of that. Thanks. Wait, you want to say a little? Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much, Trey. And on behalf of my father, Dr. James E. Bose, and my mom, Brenda, thank you very much, IGSHPA. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank all the people who have helped along the way. You know, it's easy enough for me to see the success of all of the people in the audience here. I've known a lot of you for years. A lot of you are brand new, and I don't know you, but you've really made it easy. You've really made it fun, and this technology has given me credit where I don't deserve it. So I want to thank each one of you for making this possible for this industry. And I'm just lucky enough to be old enough that I could be there at the start. So almost every time we needed something, somebody showed up to do it. And I thank you. You'll never know just how much I thank you.